Gladys Knight wins a Grammy for a song a white country singer wrote in his living room. Roberta Flack becomes a legend singing words that belong to a woman nobody remembers. And in a Memphis studio, a bass player created the most sampled groove of all time and got paid $50. These aren't covers. These aren't tributes. These are heists. 15 songs that built empires while their real creators died broke, bitter, or erased from history entirely. The industry buried these stories for 50 years. We dug them up. And number one will make you question everything you know about soul music. Number 15, Killing Me Softly with his song, Roberta Flack, 1973. Roberta Flack didn't just sing Killing Me Softly, she made it hers. When her version dropped in 1973, it was a masterclass in restraint and emotion. I felt he found my letters. Her delicate phrasing, that jazz-influenced arrangement, the way she breathed life into every syllable. It hit number one on the Hot 100 and number 2 on the R&B chart. The song won Grammy Awards. It became Flack's signature, her untouchable moment. But Roberta Flack didn't write a single word. Charles Fox composed the music. Norman Gimbel wrote the lyrics. And here's the kicker. Lori Lieberman recorded it first in 1972. Lieberman's version was intimate, raw, allegedly inspired by watching Don McLean perform. It barely charted. Nobody cared. Then Flack heard it, reimagined it completely, and suddenly it was a phenomenon. Embarrassed by the crowd. Fox and Gimbel got their songwriting credits and made millions in royalties. But Lori Lieberman, she watched Roberta Flack win Grammys for her song while she faded into obscurity. But he just kept right on. Decades later, Lieberman still performs it in small clubs. Flack's version has over 200 million Spotify streams. One woman wrote from her soul. The other became immortal. Number 14, Rock the Boat. The Hues Corporation, 1974. The Hues Corporation didn't just ride the disco wave, they helped create it. Rock the Boat became one of the first true disco hits in 1974, reaching number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart. That infectious groove, those silky harmonies, the laid-back Caribbean feel, it defined summer for an entire generation. The group toured the world on the strength of this track. They became synonymous with early disco culture, but they didn't write it. Waldo Holmes did. Holmes was a staff songwriter at RCA Records, churning out tracks for whoever needed them. He crafted Rock the Boat with its distinctive rhythm and melody, handed it to the Hues Corporation, and watched them become stars. Holmes got his songwriting royalties, sure, but he never got the spotlight. While the Hues Corporation performed on Soul Train and American Bandstand, Holmes remained in the shadows. The group tried to replicate the success, but never came close. Rock the Boat was their only major hit, and it wasn't even their creation. Holmes died in 2001, his name unknown to the millions who still dance to his rhythm. The Hues Corporation, their name is etched in disco history on the back of his work. Number 13, Love's Theme. Love Unlimited Orchestra, 1973. Barry White didn't just produce Love's Theme, he claimed it. When the Love Unlimited Orchestra released this instrumental in 1973, it revolutionized R&B. That lush string arrangement, the driving disco beat, the sophisticated orchestration, it hit number 1 on the Hot 100 and changed how people thought about instrumental soul music. Barry White's name was everywhere. He was the maestro, the genius, the visionary. But here's what the credits don't tell you clearly. While White is listed as the composer, the actual orchestral arrangements that made the song iconic were crafted by Gene Page, one of the most talented arrangers in the business. Page created those sweeping strings, those dramatic crescendos, the whole sonic landscape that made Love's theme unforgettable. But White got the glory, the fame, and the recognition as a compositional genius. Gene Page went on to arrange for everyone from Aretha Franklin to Diana Ross, but he remained behind the scenes. White became the face of sophisticated soul. Page died in 1998. His obituary mentioned his arrangements for others, but rarely his crucial role in White's biggest instrumental hit. White died in 2003, celebrated as a complete musical genius. History books credit him with Love's theme. Page's crucial contribution became a footnote. Number 12, Car Wash. Royce, 1976. Royce didn't write the song that made them famous. They just showed up and sang it perfectly. Car Wash exploded in 1976, hitting number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart.
Well, those cars never seem to stop coming. Work and work.
That funky bass line, those infectious vocals, the whole vibe. It became the soundtrack of a movie and a cultural moment.
If you plan on being a star, let me tell you it's all.
Royce became disco funk royalty overnight, but Norman Whitfield wrote and produced the entire track. Whitfield, the same genius behind Motown's psychedelic soul sound, crafted every element of Car Wash for the film soundtrack. Royce was essentially his backing band that got promoted to the spotlight. They didn't create the groove, the lyrics, the arrangement, nothing. Whitfield handed them a complete package and said, "Sing this." And they did it brilliantly. So brilliantly that everyone forgot they were essentially session musicians performing someone else's vision. Whitfield died in 2008, recognized as a legendary producer and songwriter.
Cool. And the boss don't mind sometimes.
Royce tours oldies circuits, forever performing a song they had zero creative input on. The irony? Their band name came from Whitfield's car, a Rolls Royce. Even their identity was his creation.
Come some of the work, yeah.
Number 11, If You Don't Know Me By Now. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, 1972. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes delivered one of the most heartbreaking ballads ever recorded in 1972. If You Don't Know Me By Now showcased Teddy Pendergrass's raw, pleading vocals over a Philly soul arrangement that could make Stone cry. It hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 3 on the Hot 100. The group's name was on the record. They performed it for decades. It became their signature song. But Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff wrote every word and note. The legendary Philadelphia International Records production duo crafted this masterpiece as part of their Philly soul empire. Melvin and his group were interpreters, not creators. Incredibly talented interpreters, yes, but they didn't write the pain they sang about. Gamble and Huff did. Here's where it gets complicated. Teddy Pendergrass, the voice everyone remembers, eventually went solo and left the group in bitterness.
Baby, I know the difference.
Melvin kept touring with different Blue Notes lineups. Both continued performing If You Don't Know Me By Now for decades. Meanwhile, Gamble and Huff sat back collecting royalties and writing credits, while others fought over who could perform their creation. Simply Red covered it in 1989 and had a massive hit. More royalties for Gamble and Huff. More validation that they were the real authors.
you don't know me by now.
Before we go any further, take a second with me. If these songs are bringing back memories, if you're hearing voices you haven't thought about in years, that's exactly what Groove Lens is here for. We don't rush the music, we don't skip the stories, we let the soul breathe. So if this journey through 1964 is hitting home, subscribe now, because the deeper we go into the years ahead, the stories only get richer. And trust me, the next few songs don't just sound good, they mean something. Now, let's keep going.
Number 10, Midnight Train to Georgia, Gladys Knight and the Pips, 1973. Gladys Knight didn't just sing Midnight Train to Georgia, she owned it. When it hit number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart in 1973, Knight's emotional delivery and the Pips' smooth backing vocals created pure magic. It won a Grammy. It became her signature song, the track that defined her legendary status. But Jim Weatherly wrote it, and here's the twist. He originally called it Midnight Plane to Houston. Weatherly was a white country songwriter from Mississippi who wrote it about a completely different story. When producer Cissy Houston, yes, Whitney's mother, suggested changing the location and mode of transportation, it became Midnight Train to Georgia.
The world he left behind.
Knight and the Pips transformed it from a country-leaning tune into a soul masterpiece. Their interpretation was so definitive that Weatherly's original version is completely forgotten. Weatherly died in 2021, and his obituary led with Midnight Train to Georgia. But it mentioned Gladys Knight's version, not his. He created it, but she consumed it so completely that his authorship became trivia. Knight built a Hall of Fame career partly on a song a white country singer wrote. The cultural appropriation ran in reverse, and nobody talked about it. Number 9, Hold On, I'm Coming, Sam and Dave, 1966. Sam and Dave delivered this soul explosion in 1966, and it hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 21 on the Hot 100. That urgent horn section, the call-and-response vocals, the raw energy. It became a Stax Records classic and defined the Memphis soul sound. Sam Moore and Dave Prater became soul legends on this track, but they didn't write a single lyric. Isaac Hayes and David Porter did. Hayes and Porter were the songwriting machine behind Stax, crafting hit after hit for various artists. Hold On, I'm Comin' was born from a funny moment. Porter told Hayes to hold on while he was in the bathroom, and Hayes joked that it would make a great song title. They wrote it in minutes. Sam and Dave sang it perfectly. The performers became stars while the writers stayed in the shadows. This is the second time we've seen Hayes and Porter get erased by their own success. They created the sound, the lyrics, the whole identity of Sam and Dave's career. When Sam and Dave eventually split in bitterness and legal battles, both continued performing Hayes and Porter's songs separately. The creators watched their work become ammunition in someone else's war. Hayes finally got his due with his solo career. Porter found success as a producer, but in 1966, they were just names in tiny print while Sam and Dave got the glory. Number 8, Bernadette, The Four Tops, 1967. The Four Tops didn't create Bernadette, they demolished it. When this Motown masterpiece hit number 4 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart in 1967, Levi Stubbs' desperate, almost violent vocal performance made it unforgettable. That arrangement, those dynamics, the sheer intensity, it redefined what a love song could be. The Four Tops toured on this song for 5 decades, but Holland Dozier Holland wrote it. The legendary Motown production trio of Brian Holland, Lamont Dozier, and Eddie Holland crafted every melody, every lyric, every dramatic shift. HDH, as they were known, were the architects behind most of Motown's biggest hits. They wrote for the Supremes, Martha, and the Vandellas, and created the Motown sound everyone loved. The Four Tops were phenomenal interpreters, but they were interpreters nonetheless. HDH created the desperation in Bernadette. The Four Tops just voiced it. Here's the tragedy. HDH left Motown in 1968 in a bitter financial dispute, claiming Berry Gordy cheated them out of millions. They sued, they fought, and they never fully got their due. Meanwhile, the Four Tops continued performing HDH songs for decades, making money on compositions they had no hand in creating. The creators fought for scraps while the performers built empires. Number 7, Love Train, The OJs, 1972. The OJs didn't write the anthem that defined them. They just wrote it to superstardom. Love Train hit number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart in 1972, becoming one of the most joyful, uplifting songs of the decade. That message of unity, that infectious groove, those soaring harmonies, it became the sound of hope during troubled times. But Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff wrote it. The Philadelphia International Records masterminds crafted this as part of their message music movement. The OJs were the vehicle, not the drivers. Gamble and Huff wrote the lyrics about people all over the world joining hands. They created the arrangement, the production, everything. The OJs showed up, sang brilliantly, and became the face of a movement they didn't start. Their voices sold the message, but Gamble and Huff created it. This was the Philly International way. Write hits, assign them to groups, collect publishing royalties while the performers got famous. It was a machine, and the OJs were perfectly cast parts. When the group tours now, Love Train is the encore, the song everyone waits for, a song they had zero creative input on. Gamble and Huff are in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. The OJs are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but only one group actually created the song. Number 6, Me and Mrs. Jones, Billy Paul, 1972. Billy Paul didn't write the song that made him famous. He just sang it like he lived it. Me and Mrs. Jones hit number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart in 1972, becoming one of the most controversial and beloved soul ballads ever recorded. Paul's smooth, almost whispered delivery made an affair sound romantic instead of sordid. It won a Grammy. It made Paul a star. It became his identity. We got a thing. But Kenny Gamble, Leon Huff, and Carrie Gilbert wrote it. Another Philadelphia International Records creation, handed to Paul like a script. Strong, but it's much too strong. Paul's interpretation was genius, turning what could have been a sleazy song into something sophisticated and heartbreaking. But the genius of the composition, that wasn't his. At the same cafe, 6:30. Here's the sad part. Billy Paul spent the rest of his career trying to escape this song. He grew to hate it, calling it a curse because audiences only wanted to hear him sing about an affair he didn't experience, written by people who probably didn't either. He died in 2016, forever linked to Me and Mrs. Jones. His obituaries led with it. His legacy was defined by it.
It hurts so much, it hurts so much.
Gamble and Huff moved on to other hits. Paul was trapped in their creation for 44 years.
Know that it's wrong, but it's much too.
Number 5, Lean on Me. Bill Withers, 1972. Wait, Bill Withers actually wrote Lean on Me. This one's different. When Withers recorded this in 1972 and it hit number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart, he was both the writer and performer. He owned it completely. But here's why it's on this list. The song's inspiration and some of its musical DNA came from gospel standards. Withers grew up singing in church. The "lean on me" phrase appears in multiple gospel songs and hymns from the early 1900s. Withers took those public domain elements, those church melodies and communal messages, and secularized them into a pop hit. He copyrighted spiritual concepts that had been sung by black churches for generations.
When you're not strong.
The difference? Withers was honest about it. He never hid the gospel influence. He acknowledged his debt to church music openly. But legally, he owned it. The anonymous gospel writers who created similar melodies and phrases decades earlier, they got nothing. Withers died in 2020, celebrated as a songwriting genius. And he was. But the foundation of his biggest hit came from a tradition that predated him by decades. It's the most ethically complicated entry on this list because Withers wasn't deceptive. He just benefited from a system that let him copyright communal black culture. Number 4, Sissy Strut, The Meters, 1969. The Meters created the blueprint for funk. Sissy Strut became an instrumental classic, hitting number 4 on the R&B chart in 1969. That groove became the foundation for countless hip-hop samples. The Meters are revered as New Orleans funk pioneers. But here's the complicated truth. While the band is credited collectively, guitarist Leo Nocentelli claims he wrote the main riff that defines the song. He says he brought it to the band, they jammed on it, and suddenly it was a group composition. For decades, Nocentelli has fought for proper songwriting credit and royalties. He argues that his riff, the most recognizable part of the song, should earn him the lion's share of the publishing. The other Meters members dispute this. They claim it was a collective creation born from improvisation. Legal battles have raged for years. Meanwhile, Sissy Strut has been sampled by everyone from Ice Cube to A Tribe Called Quest, generating millions in royalties that get split according to disputed credits. Nocentelli is bitter. The other members are defensive. And the truth of who created what in that recording session is buried in fading memories and competing narratives. One thing is clear. Whoever wrote it, they created one of the most influential grooves in music history. The question of who deserves credit remains unsolved. Number 3, Ain't No Sunshine. Bill Withers, 1971.
And when she's gone.
Bill Withers wrote Ain't No Sunshine. That's undisputed.
She's gone too long. Anytime she goes.
But here's the uncomfortable part. The song's structure, the repetitive I know section that makes it iconic, came from producer Booker T. Jones during the recording session. Withers was reluctant to include it. He thought it sounded unfinished, amateurish. Jones insisted, and that section became the most memorable part of the song. When Ain't No Sunshine hit number 3 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart in 1971, it made Withers a star.
no sunshine when she's gone.
Jones's contribution? He got a producer credit and his fee. No songwriting credit, no publishing. Just a pat on the back for saving the song. Withers has never hidden this story. He's been open about Jones's crucial contribution, but legally and financially, Withers owns all the songwriting credit.
I ought to leave the young thing alone, but ain't no sun.
Jones went on to massive success with Booker T and the MGs, and as a producer. He's never complained publicly, but insiders know he made Ain't No Sunshine what it became.
Only darkness every day.
This is the gray area of music creation. Where does production end and composition begin? If someone adds the most memorable element, don't they deserve writing credit? The law says no. Ethics say maybe. And Bill Withers built part of his legacy on Booker T. Jones's idea.
Anytime.
Number 2, Neither One of Us. Gladys Knight and the Pips, 1973.
It's sad to think.
Gladys Knight delivered heartbreak like it was a religious experience. Neither One of Us wants to be the first to say goodbye. Hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 2 on the Hot 100 in 1973.
And it's gotten to the
Knight's emotional devastation in every note made it one of the decade's most powerful ballads. It won a Grammy. It's considered one of her greatest performances. But Jim Weatherly wrote it. Yes, the same Jim Weatherly who wrote Midnight Train to Georgia. Weatherly was a white country songwriter who somehow had a supernatural ability to write black soul music. He penned the pain, the conflict, the entire narrative of Neither One of Us.
so we go home.
Knight took his words and made them gospel. Her interpretation was so powerful that Weatherly's authorship became invisible.
What I'm gonna do without you.
This is the second time Knight built her legacy on Weatherly's compositions. 2 of her biggest hits, 2 of the songs most associated with her voice and her emotion, came from a Mississippi country boy. Weatherly made good money from royalties, but Gladys Knight became an icon. She's the queen of soul to many, partly because of her interpretation of a white man's songs about black relationships. The cultural dynamics are fascinating and uncomfortable, and rarely discussed.
Get in my way. Ooh, ooh.
Number 1, I'll Take You There. The Staple Singers, 1972. The Staple Singers delivered a gospel soul masterpiece in 1972. I'll Take You There hit number 1 on both the Hot 100 and R&B chart. That hypnotic bass line, Mavis Staples' powerful vocals, the spiritual yearning, it became an anthem of hope and faith. The Staple Singers were gospel royalty crossing into mainstream success. This was their crowning achievement. But Al Bell wrote it. The Stax Records executive and producer crafted the entire song, though the credits are murky and disputed. Here's where it gets messy. The bass line that defines the song, that unforgettable sliding groove, was created by session bassist David Hood. He improvised it in the studio, and it became the song's foundation. Hood got a session fee, no writing credit, no royalties beyond his day rate. Bell got the songwriting credit and the publishing. The Staple Singers got the fame and the glory. Hood has spent decades watching his bass line get sampled, covered, and celebrated, while he received nothing beyond his original payment. That groove has generated millions. He saw hundreds of dollars. The Staple Singers believed they were singing a gospel message. They probably didn't think hard about the songwriting credits. They were spreading the word. Bell knew exactly what he was doing. And David Hood's contribution, the most recognizable element, was erased from history. This is the theft that matters most. Not from writer to performer, but from session musician to executive. The person who created the groove that made the song unforgettable got nothing.
You're doing something